All right, gearheads. I don't normally do videos like this. Speed City normally has our live radio shows, but this Haas F1 story that hit the news, hit PBS, did a story on Haas Automation, the parent company of Haas F1. They hit last night, came out on the PBS News Hour on March 14th, and essentially of accusing the Haas Automation, the parent company of Haas F1, of collaborating with the Russian military. And it was a stunning headline, and the story even more so because of the details that they provided in this story. And I'm going to put up the website for PBS because I think it's important to see the way they put this. So, American company accused of violating sanctions doing business with Russian arms industry. March 14th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So last night, 24 hours ago, roughly. And they go on in the story to talk about some evidence and quoting several different people. And in fact, probably the key person in this story is Dennis Hutek. And it's interesting because he's a consultant with the Economic Security Council of Ukraine. So he just goes on to talk about the evidence they have of that Haas sold. At one point, they talked about $2 million worth of equipment to the Russians. And the implication of this is that Haas Automation produces some of the world's most sophisticated CNC machines, the machines that either make other machines or that make weapons or anything to do with the military. They're in that industry for sure because the American military apparently is a customer as well. But it's a horrific allegation that they're saying that they've done this, and no one knows the truth yet. But I just felt strongly enough, especially after I saw the Haas F1 response, which I'll put that up now because very interesting. Oh, that's still the PBS story. Very interesting response from Haas because they refute this pretty heavily. It says, on Tuesday, March 14th, PBS ran a story alleging that Haas Automation has directly provided machines and parts to Russia in violation of U.S. export control and sanctions regulations. Goes on to say that story is simply false, both in its overall impression and in many of its particular statements. Some of the key points they say: Haas is and always has been in full compliance with U.S. government export control. No machines have shipped from the Haas factory to Russia since March 3rd of 2022. And I'm going to pause there. No machines have shipped to the Haas from the Haas factory to Russia since March 3rd of 2022. And I pause there because that's close to the same date that Haas F1 severed ties with their, at the time, title sponsor Uralkali, the Russian fertilizer manufacturer. And they also severed ties with the Russian driver on the Haas F1 team, Nikita Mazepin, the son of the oligarch that owns Uralkali. So those were just a couple of days apart, according to Haas. And I just thought that was a key point. Let's go back to the Haas response because they go on to say the 18 machines referenced in the story left the Haas factory prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Haas has voluntarily chose to terminate its relationship with the Russian distributor that was quoted in the PBS story, which has never been required by U.S. sanctions. And Haas completely supports Ukraine and its people in their defense against Russia. And I think that that's a key point to think about because, first of all, if you think, okay, Haas Automation is just a big company, they're all about profits, it's American greed. Okay, if you just think of it that way, how silly would it be? How short-sighted would it be for Haas to sell a few machines to Russia and then potentially sacrifice billions of dollars in sales to a good part of the world? You know, what part of the world is going to want to buy machines from someone who's doing this, who's collaborating with Russia invading Ukraine? Okay, maybe China and maybe some others, but it doesn't make sense from a purely business standpoint. It just doesn't add up to me. And I could be wrong, and the investigation could prove different. And I say the investigation. PBS alluded to the fact that the U.S. government should and maybe likely would look into this. And that would make sense because of the severity, the insanity of this claim. Because if Haas were truly doing this, it would be insane. So, but there's some more of this Haas response that I want to share with you, because towards the bottom of their response, it says, in particular, Haas as a company has deplored Russia's invasion of Ukraine and taken every step in its control to cease doing business with Russia or Russian companies. It's also taken affirmative measures to support Ukraine, including in compliance with U.S. export and control sanction regulations, providing Haas distributor in Ukraine and its Ukrainian customers expedited delivery of Haas manufactured machines, which could help battle Russia. That's my opinion there. So the rest of it goes on to say, these and earlier provided Haas machines are directly and indirectly supporting Ukraine's efforts to defend itself against Russia's unwarranted invasion. It is a bitter irony, therefore, that the PBS report paints Haas as being supportive of the Russian military, which couldn't be further from the truth. At a time when Americans are struggling to develop the most effective course of conduct in support of Ukraine, it is irresponsible in the extreme for PBS to present this poorly sourced hit piece, they say, which ignores basic facts and asserts other facts that are clearly false. I certainly hope that Haas didn't do this. I can't imagine that they would be so short-sighted. And as we know, Haas F1 has struggled with some, just having the Russian sponsor, which they did, they probably wouldn't have continued in Formula One had they not done that. This was right as Drive to Survive was driving all the interest in Formula One and driving all the new sponsors, including lots of new American sponsors, to Formula One. So the timing of them having a Russian sponsor, they needed the money, and that was probably not a great move, honestly. And then, of course, the Rich Energy debacle, the other sponsor they had. So Haas has had not a great track record, but nothing of choosing sponsors, right? But this is a whole different league of craziness. So I just can't imagine it. But thanks for tuning in. I know this is a little bit out of the ordinary for us, and we'll definitely be addressing that on this weekend shows, which, of course, we have our new pre-qualifying show, which is on the ESPN Extra channel on Sirius XM channel 81. That'll be Saturday right after qualifying, and then we have our regular shows that we always do, our pre-Formula One race and post-Formula One race, surrounding the BBC's play-by-play of each race, and that's also on the ESPN Extra channel 81 on Sirius XM. We'll talk to you then.